Finally, at the level where we get to look at access modifiers. We have seen them already. I mentioned it quite a number of times in the previous sessions. So this is the point where we get to finalize on that discussion. There is the public access modifier. Then there's the package private one. Package private is when you don't see any modifier before the keyword class. So for top level access, that is the access at the class, we have public or package private. So let me just show you that before we proceed. This is the database class. I can either make it public like that, or I can leave it as is, which makes it package private. We'll define what those are in a bit. Then for the members, the class members, this is the fields as we've seen earlier, the methods as we've seen earlier, and the constructors and such. You have public, same definition as the one before. We have private. So private is supported for member level access. Let me just show us that. If I was to type private at the top level, it's not allowed. As you're seeing, there's a compile time error. So I'll just remove that. Oops, I never did that. Okay. So I'll just remove that public there, and I'll make one of these members private. I expected the problem because if it's private, then it can't be accessible outside of the class. So just so you know, the best place to use it, just turn that back to public. The best place to use private is when you're working with fields and you don't want them to be directly accessible outside of the class. We saw this when I was discussing or walking us through getters and setters with this field right here. So this field is private, which means it can only be accessed via its getters and setters when it's outside of the class and can't be accessed directly, which we already saw. So you can make this private too and work with getters and setters to access it, and so on and so forth. Next, we have protected. So protected is also for the member level access modifier. We'll see what that is in the next during the next tab. So I'll leave it as that, at that for now. Then package private, same definition as this other one. Let's define them. What does it mean? If you see that a top level access or a member access is public, what it means that it is visible to all classes everywhere. I'll also walk us through a nice definition after this with diagrams from the official documentation, whose link I will append in the description. When you say private, it means it is only accessible directly within its own class. This is why when we made a field public in an earlier session, I had to use getters and setters to access that field outside of the class. When it's protected, it means it is accessible to the package plus to a subclass outside of that package. So we'll see this in a bit. When it's package private, it is visible only within its own package. So that is what it means. Again, public and package private are the ones for the top level access. Later on, we'll talk about packages to fully understand what it means. I will use this table from the official documentation. I'll attach the link to this table in the description to walk us through access level. So public, protected, package private when there's no modifier, and private. Public is accessible everywhere, which means to the class itself, to the package, to the subclass of that class, and everywhere else, so the world. Protected means it is accessible to the class, to the package, and to the package and its subclass. We'll look at an example. No modifier means it is package private, so it's accessible to the class and to the package. Private means it is only accessible to the class. From this table, we deduce that a class always has access to its own members. Moving on to that, let's look at an example. So we have this package 1 and we have another package, package 2. This package has two classes, alpha and beta, this package has two classes, alpha sub and gamma. Okay, so alpha sub is a subclass of alpha. As we had seen before, a subclass Oracle was a subclass of class database, so on. So this is an example of that. So we want to see whether or how the members could be of alpha class, this class here, are visible or accessible across the other classes. So for the members that are public in alpha, of course, they are visible in alpha. They are also visible in beta. They are visible in alpha sub, and they are also visible in gamma. Okay. Then for the members that are protected, they are visible in the alpha class, they are visible in beta, and they are also visible in a subclass of alpha in another package. Okay, like that. They're also visible in a subclass, in the subclass of alpha for another package. Then for a no modifier or package private, they're only visible within the alpha class and the package, so beta and alpha. For private, it's only within the class. So sometimes when you're deciding on what access modifiers to use, you can find these tips useful. Work with private by default, unless there's a very good reason not to. Another thing is avoid working with public unless you're working with constants, which we'll get to discuss in another session. And because when you're working with public, it restricts your flexibility in changing your code because other people elsewhere might be using it. So you will have to be inflexible, or rather you'll be limited when you want to change your code, or you'll be limited to a particular implementation because there could be other classes in the world that are making use of your package. So take note of that. Again, public, visible to all classes everywhere. Private, only directly accessible to its own class. Protected is package private plus to a subclass in another package. Then package private is visible only within its own package. So it's safe to assume that protected has the capacity of package private plus an additional capacity of another package that is a subclass of that. So just to review, I'll attach this link to the resources. Make a point of going through it if you need to practice some more. See you on the next one.